The email draft glowed quietly on the screen. To all employees, Stellar Capital. Attachment: a zip file I named a special commendation. I swirled the Cabernet in my glass, standing before the floor-to-ceiling window of our Soho apartment. I watched the woman on the street below, my wife, Chloe Sterling, laughing and celebrating her promotion with her girlfriends. Her smile was so brilliant, like a poisonous flower in full, glorious bloom. I took a sip of wine, the cool liquid a balm to my throat. Enjoy it, my love. Enjoy the final peak of your life. Tomorrow, I won't ask for a divorce. I'm going to bury you. Chapter 1. The Crack in the Facade. A year ago, I wasn't this person. Back then, I still believed in love. I believed the 7 years I'd shared with Chloe were forged in something unbreakable. To our friends, our home was the perfect showroom. I was a mid-level manager at IBM, stable, respectable. And she, Chloe Sterling, was the rising star at Stellar Capital, the kind of woman who seemed to generate her own spotlight as she walked through Midtown. I was up at 6:30 every morning to make her pour-over coffee and the avocado toast she loved. She had a touch of OCD, so I kept the apartment spotless. All her designer heels were arranged in her walk-in closet by color and height. My friends ribbed me for it. They said I, Ethan Grant, was less like a husband and more like a high-end butler. I just smiled. I loved her. I loved the fire in her eyes when she chased her ambitions, and I was willing to be the stable ground she launched from. Until the cracks began to show. It started with her phone's passcode. We never had secrets. The code had always been my birthday. One night, I picked up her phone to look something up, typed it in. Incorrect. I paused, tried again. Still wrong. She came out of the bathroom, saw me with her phone, and a flicker of panic. So faint I almost missed it. Crossed her face. Then she smiled, taking it from my hand. Oh, honey, I changed it yesterday. Just being a little more careful with security. Here, I'll unlock it. She tapped in a new code in front of me, but didn't tell me what it was. From that day on, her phone was a bomb strapped to her body, never to be touched. Then came the perfume. She used to wear the Joe Malone's Wild Bluebell I'd bought her, a scent that was cool and clean. But lately, I'd catch a different fragrance on her clothes, an aggressive, woodsy scent I didn't recognize. She said it must have rubbed off from a new female colleague at the office. Once, twice, 3 times, did this female colleague live in her office? The late nights at work became more and more frequent. She used to call, excited to share details about a project progress, or exhausted and wanted to be coddled. Now her late nights were just a cold, impersonal text on iMessage. Gotta work late, don't wait up. Not even a phone call. The thing that truly broke my heart, though, was the way she began to flinch from my touch. I'd try to hug her, and her body would go rigid. I'd lean in to kiss her, and she'd instinctively turn her head. Ethan, I'm just so exhausted lately, she'd say. The pressure at work is insane. Exhausted? Under pressure, I believed her. I even wondered if I wasn't being supportive enough, if I should give her more space. I went online and researched ways to de-stress, bought her expensive aromatherapy diffusers, and booked appointments for her at the best spas in the city. I was a fool, trying desperately to patch a growing crack in the wall, oblivious to the fact that someone else had already dug out the foundation. The final straw landed on a rain-lashed night. It was our wedding anniversary. I'd made a reservation at her favorite Michelin-starred French restaurant and bought a bouquet of her favorite white roses, planning to surprise her. At 5 p.m., I sent her a text. Hey, babe, try to get out of the office on time tonight. I have a surprise for you. Winky face. Half an hour later, she replied, Oh, Ethan, I'm so sorry. A last-minute emergency meeting just came up. The investors flew in from London, and I can't get out of it. We might be here all night. I'm so sorry. Can we celebrate this weekend? Staring at the perfect white roses, a tide of disappointment washed over me. But I still typed back. No problem. Work comes first. Be safe. I'll wait up for you. I canceled the reservation and sat alone in the dark living room, listening to the rain drumming against the windows, an awful hollowness spreading through my chest. At 10 p.m., a buddy sent me a picture on WhatsApp. It was a screenshot from his dash cam, a little blurry, but I recognized the street, right near Chloe's office building. He wrote, Hey man, was just driving past your wife's office. Saw someone who looked a lot like her from behind, getting cozy with some guy. Probably not her, right? I opened the image, and my heart was seized by an invisible hand. Through the rain-streaked windshield, I saw a woman in a beige trench coat. Her silhouette was identical to Chloe's. A tall man held her in his arms, and she was laughing, her head thrown back. I typed back, "You're seeing things?" She stuck in a meeting. I shut off my phone, unable to sit still any longer. A terrible premonition was strangling me. I grabbed my car keys and ran out into the downpour. I didn't need GPS. I could have driven that route with my eyes closed. For years, no matter how late she worked, I would always drive to pick her up. The windshield wipers beat a frantic rhythm, but they couldn't clear the blur in my eyes. As I neared her building, I killed the headlights and pulled over at a discreet street corner. I felt like a death row inmate awaiting the verdict. 10 minutes, 20, half an hour. Finally, the revolving doors of the stellar Capitol Tower spun, and a figure I knew better than my own emerged. It was Chloe, and with her was a man, handsome, suave, in a perfectly tailored suit. The Patek Philippe on his wrist glinted in the dim light. I recognized him. Julian Vance, a director from another department at Stellar Capital. A married man. They stood at the entrance for a moment. Julian said something, and Chloe laughed, a delighted, unrestrained sound, leaning her entire body against him. Then, Julian opened an umbrella. It was the umbrella I had given Chloe for our anniversary last year. Black canopy, with a handle I had custom engraved with our initials, E and C. I had carved it myself. Now, that umbrella was shielding the two of them from the storm. They walked, wrapped in an embrace, toward the five-star Hilton across the street. At the hotel's entrance, Julian bent his head and kissed her. It wasn't a quick peck. It was a deep, lingering kiss. Chloe rose onto her toes, her hands locked around his neck, returning it with an equal, desperate passion. Rainwater streamed down my windshield, distorting their image, twisting them into grotesque shapes. It was like watching a silent, monstrous play. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel heartbreak. I felt nothing. My brain was a white, silent void. My blood seemed to have stopped flowing. I just watched. I watched them finish their kiss, straighten their clothes, and walk hand in hand through the hotel's gleaming gold doors. I didn't get out of the car. I didn't storm in and confront them. I didn't call her and scream. I just sat there, a hollow sculpture in a driver's seat, for a long, long time. So long that the rain stopped. When I got back to our apartment, the home I had so meticulously curated, so full of our memories, it felt as cavernous and as cold as a tomb. The bouquet of white roses lay on the coffee table, droplets of water still clinging to the petals like tears. I walked out to the balcony, opened a new pack of cigarettes, and lit the first one. The nicotine scorched my lungs. I coughed, and finally, the tears I hadn't been able to summon began to fall. The first time we met, the way she cried when I proposed, the vows we exchanged at the altar. I, Chloe Sterling, take you, Ethan Grant, to be my husband, to love and to honor, in sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer, till death do us part. To honor me, I laughed, a bitter, broken sound. In the swirling smoke, my face was a mask of shifting light and shadow. Pain, confusion, humiliation, rage. The emotions tore through my chest like caged beasts, threatening to rip me apart. I smoked one cigarette after another until the entire pack was a mound of ash. As the last wisp of smoke dissipated from my fingers, the sky began to bleed with the first light of dawn. My eyes were dry. The emotional storm had passed, leaving behind a wasteland. Anger? No, that was too cheap. Pain? She wasn't worthy of it. All that remained inside me was a deep, bottomless pit of ice. Cold, silent, dead. I crushed the last cigarette, but the final hiss sounding like the end of a life. I picked up my phone, calmly deleted the picture my friend had sent, and cleared my call history. Then, I walked into the kitchen and, just like any other day, began to make breakfast. The thrill you're looking for, Chloe? I'll give it to you. That sense of control you crave? I'll give you that too. I'll let you fly higher than you've ever dreamed, put you under the brightest spotlight imaginable. And then, with my own two hands, I'll break your wings and watch you plummet from the heavens into an abyss from which you will never return. The game was on. Chapter 2. The Gilded Cage. The next morning at 7:30, Chloe dragged her exhausted body home. Her face had a rosy, satisfied glow that she tried to mask. But when she saw me, she immediately switched to a performance of utter weariness. "Ethan, I'm dead. We were in that meeting until just now," she said, her voice a little hoarse as she dropped her purse on the sofa. I came out of the kitchen with a glass of warm milk and a fresh breakfast plate, my face a mask of perfectly measured concern. "You must be starving. Sit down, eat something." Was the meeting a success? "I guess," she said, taking a sip of milk, her eyes darting away from mine. "We finally got that difficult investor to sign on." I noticed a new platinum necklace around her neck. The design was elegant, and it wasn't one I had given her. I didn't ask. I just walked behind her and began to gently massage her shoulders, my voice as soft as silk. "Seeing you this tired, I feel so useless. I can't help you with your work at all. All I can do is make you a meal, try to make things a little more comfortable when you get home." Chloe's body relaxed into my touch. She leaned back against me, and with a faint, almost imperceptible air of superiority, she said, "Don't say that. We just have different roles. You taking care of the home is the biggest support you could possibly give me." "I know," I murmured, my fingers brushing through her long, smooth hair, a cold smile playing on my lips. "Yes, different roles. You're out screwing your lover, and I'm here, fluffing the pillows on our marriage bed." I wasn't just going to play this part. I was going to deliver an Oscar-worthy performance. From that day on, I went full method actor. I doubled down on my devotion to Chloe. When she woke up, her toothbrush was already prepped with toothpaste. When she came home, her slippers were waiting by the door. If she casually mentioned she liked a certain handbag, I'd have it delivered the next day as a surprise. The limited edition Hermes bag she'd been coveting, I bought it using a large sum from our joint savings account. When she received it, she was so thrilled she kissed me several times, the gratitude in her eyes seeming genuine. But mixed in with that gratitude was a clear thread of condescension. In her mind, I was just the simple, doting husband completely under her control, a man who could only express himself through material possessions. I even offered to pick her up from work, no matter how late she stayed. She refused, of course, saying she didn't want me to tire myself out. I understood. My presence would only interrupt her evenings with Julian. So I shifted my performance. I became the slightly insecure husband, feeling left behind by his wife's soaring success, trying to prove his worth through excessive acts of service. I would meticulously straighten the collar of her blazer before she left. I would listen patiently as she complained about work, offering clumsy but earnest advice. My act was flawless. Chloe was completely taken in. She basked in my devotion while indulging in the illicit passion Julian offered. She was a high-wire artist, convinced of her perfect balance, never realizing that I was the one down below, methodically digging the chasm she was destined to fall into. While I played the part of the perfect husband, my other hand was reaching into the shadows. Through an old college friend who worked in a very specific government sector, I got a number for the best private investigation firm in the city, Spectre Investigations. Their fees were astronomical, but their reputation was impeccable. The rumor was if you had the money, there was nothing they couldn't find. The man in charge went by the codename K, and he was legendarily discreet. Our first meeting was in a private room at a quiet, low-lit bar in a forgotten corner of downtown. K was an ordinary-looking middle-aged man, the kind of guy you'd never notice in a crowd. But his eyes were sharp like a hawk's. I didn't waste time. I placed photos of Chloe and Julian on the table, along with their basic information. "My request is simple," I said, my voice steady. "I want evidence of their relationship. Everything. No blind spots." I held up a finger. "That includes, but is not limited to, high-resolution photos and videos of any physical intimacy. All of their communications, including iMessage, WhatsApp, texts, and any encrypted apps they might be using. All hotel records and receipts, and a full accounting of their financial exchanges, especially luxury purchases. I want to know who paid for what." I paused, then added the most critical part. "And I want any evidence that they are using their positions at Stellar Capital for mutual professional gain. For example, Chloe using her authority to give Julian's projects an advantage." Kay's eyebrows lifted slightly. He was clearly surprised by the ruthless specificity of my request. He studied me for a few seconds, then said in a low voice, "Mr. Grant, a job this comprehensive won't be cheap. Money is not an issue. I pushed a debit card across the table. That's a $50,000 deposit. When you deliver, I'll double the final invoice. I only have two conditions: be fast and be completely invisible. Done. Kay pocketed the card in the file, then stood up. The first batch of intel will be in your designated encrypted email in 1 week. The hunt had begun, and my prey, Chloe, was sinking deeper and deeper into the warm, comfortable trap I'd set. She grew bolder. Sometimes she'd text Julian right in front of me, a suppressed smile on her face, then tell me it was just a funny joke in the company's group chat. She started bringing home the gifts he bought her. The platinum necklace I'd already noticed. A Cartier watch. She'd lie and say she bought them for herself with her bonus. I even caught the scent of a man's aftershave in her car, one that wasn't mine. My flawless performance gave her an intoxicating sense of superiority and security. At a reunion with some college friends one weekend, I overheard her bragging to her best friend. "My Ethan is just so sweet and simple. He listens to everything I say," she said, her tone a mix of pride and patronizing affection. "You just have to know how to handle them. You show him a little appreciation, and he's so grateful he'd do anything for you." Her friends oohed and awed, telling her how lucky she was, how she had it all figured out: career, family, the perfect husband wrapped around her finger. I stood a short distance away, holding my drink, a faint smile on my face, watching them as if it were a scene from a dark comedy. Yes, I'm so simple. Simple enough to have a team of invisible eyes documenting every single moment of your sordid affair. Simple enough to be methodically building a case file, detailing how you leak proprietary data on competing bids and fast-track approvals to help your lover's projects, all under my direct guidance. And Julian was more than helpful. Intoxicated by the affair, or perhaps by the professional perks Chloe was providing, he became reckless. The gifts he bought her grew more expensive. And then, I saw it in a report from Kay. He had leased a luxury apartment for them, a permanent love nest. Chloe, my dear wife, was drowning in the vanity of being loved by two men. One provided a stable home and unwavering support, the perfect happily married line item on her glittering resume. The other provided illicit thrills and a professional tailwind, satisfying her boundless ambition. She thought she was a queen, in control of her own little universe. She had no idea she was just a pawn on my board, and I was just patiently waiting for the perfect moment to declare checkmate. Chapter 3. The Watcher in the Wings. Spectre Investigations was even more efficient than I'd imagined. Every Friday night, like clockwork, a file package from Kay would arrive in my encrypted email. Opening it was like opening Pandora's box, a weekly delivery of the world's ugliest betrayals and desires. The contents were staggering. High-resolution photos, each one a sharp knife. Them, kissing in an underground parking garage, Chloe's hand already inside Julian's shirt. Them, at a high-end sushi restaurant, feeding each other pieces of toro, their eyes locked in a syrupy gaze. Them, entering the luxury apartment, building one after the other, not emerging until the next morning. The clearest shot was on the private terrace of a members-only club, Chloe in a slinky slip dress, curled up in Julian's lap like a cat, his hand resting possessively on her thigh. The video clips were even more damning. While there was nothing explicit, the lingering embraces in the lobby of their love nest, the footsie under the restaurant table, it was all there. And then there were the complete communication logs. They were careful, using an encrypted foreign app, but Kay's team had cracked it. The chat logs were vulgar and sickening. Julian called her my beautiful Chloe, my little wildcat, and my wife, the poised and elegant woman I knew, called him Jules, peppering her messages with emojis and phrases that were so raunchy they made my stomach turn. "Jules, you were so powerful in that meeting today. I could barely control myself. My husband bought me another new bag today. He's so easy to please, winky face. I'll wear it for you on our next date. Ugh, he tried to touch me again tonight. I had to tell him I was too tired. My body is only for you." I scrolled through the logs with a blank expression, page after sickening page. My heart had already died on that rainy night. This evidence couldn't hurt me anymore. It was just ammunition. Calmly, like a surgeon, I began to sort and categorize the files. Anything blurry was discarded. Anything not sufficiently damning was set aside. Anything that wouldn't hold up as undeniable proof was archived for later. I selected only the best, the most visually shocking, the most irrefutable, the kind of evidence that could instantly obliterate a person's public image. The photo of them kissing at the hotel entrance, so clear you could see the brand of her lipstick. The 30-second video of them making out in his car, raw and desperate. The bank statements detailing Julian's lavish spending on Chloe, along with the lease agreement for their love nest, paid in his name. And the crown jewel, screenshots of internal emails and approval chains, documenting exactly how Chloe had bent the rules to push Julian's projects through. I saved this curated collection of greatest hits to an encrypted hard drive. I even started to storyboard the presentation, planning the most dramatic, most brutal way to unveil these gifts to the world. By day, I remained the model husband. One evening, Chloe came out of the shower wearing that new necklace from Julian. I acted as if I'd just noticed it, walking over and gently touching the pendant. Wow, honey, this is beautiful. When did you get it? You didn't tell me. A flicker of panic crossed her eyes before she composed herself, tucking her hair behind her ear. Oh, this? I saw it while I was out shopping the other day and just bought it on an impulse. I forgot to mention it. It's gorgeous. It makes your skin glow. I said, my praise completely sincere. I lower my head, affecting a tone of self-reproach. It's my fault. I've been so distracted lately. I haven't gotten you anything nice in a while. I'm glad you treat yourself. My words inflated her ego perfectly. She patted my cheek, as if comforting a pet. Silly. It's the same as if I buy it myself. You're already so good to me. I could practically hear her internal monologue. Look at this fool. I can wear my lover's gifts right in front of him. And not only does he not notice, he praises me for it and blames himself. Later, I heard she bragged about it to her work friends in the break room, telling them how trusting and clueless her husband was, presenting herself as a masterclass in marital management. They probably all thought of me, Ethan Grant, as a pathetic, laughable fool. A fool? I sat in my home office, looking at a photo on my screen of Chloe and Julian embracing in their love nest, and a cold smile touched my lips. Soon, you'll all find out who the real fool is. As time went on, Julian started getting restless. Buoyed by the success of the projects Chloe had helped him secure, he was becoming a big name at the firm, and his ego was inflating by the day. He was no longer content with a secret affair. In their chats, he began pressuring her to leave me. Chloe, I can't stand it anymore. The thought of you having to sleep next to that pathetic loser every night drives me crazy. When are you going to tell him? I'm ready on my end. Just say the word and I'll file for divorce. Chloe, ever the strategist, kept him at bay. Jules, please, just a little longer. I'm in the final running for the director position. I can't have any drama right now. Ethan is good to me, and he trusts me completely. I don't have a good reason to leave, and a messy divorce would look bad for my reputation. Just wait until I get the promotion. Once I'm director, nothing can stop us. Their relationship wasn't always perfect. One report from Kay included surveillance photos of them arguing outside the apartment building. Julian looked furious. Chloe was clearly trying to placate him. Seeing it didn't move me at all. Just dogs fighting over a bone. All I needed was for them to keep up their sordid affair, to keep getting bolder, to keep creating more evidence. The hatred inside me was like a fine wine, aging in a dark cellar. With time, it didn't fade. It grew richer, more complex, and infinitely more lethal. I went on with my life calmly. I went to work calmly. I played my part calmly. I was waiting for the perfect moment. The one single moment when Chloe was at the absolute pinnacle of her life, so I could send her crashing down, shattering her into a million pieces. The moment I was waiting for finally arrived. On a Monday morning in early fall, a company-wide announcement appeared on the Stellar Capital intranet. After a rigorous selection process, star project manager Chloe Sterling, on the back of her extraordinarily impressive performance over the past year, had been named the sole candidate for the open position of Director of Investments. Below the text was Chloe's professional headshot. Her makeup was flawless, her expression sharp, her smile radiating confidence. The quintessential corporate powerhouse. There would be a one-week review period. If no one raised a valid objection during that week, she would officially be appointed the following Monday, becoming one of the youngest directors in the firm's history. The announcement hit the company like a bomb. Chloe was instantly the center of attention. Congratulatory emails and Slack messages flooded her inbox. Everyone wanted to be on the good side of the newly powerful Director Sterling. She had reached the summit of her career. She was untouchable. That evening, she organized a celebratory dinner, booking the largest private room at an exclusive club and inviting her entire department, along with a few key executives. When she called me, her voice was vibrating with excitement and pride. "Ethan, you have to come tonight. I want everyone to see what a supportive husband I have." "Of course. I'll be there," I said. I hung up, looked at my reflection in the mirror, and practiced a perfect, loving smile. Of course I'd be there. How could I possibly miss such a momentous occasion? I put on my best suit, ordered the largest, most expensive bouquet of champagne roses I could find, and drove to the club. When I appeared at the doorway holding the flowers, every head in the room turned. Chloe, looking regal in a custom-made red dress, beamed and rushed over to take my arm. "Everyone, I'd like you to meet my husband, Ethan." I smiled, handed her the bouquet, and placed a loving kiss on her forehead. "Congratulations, Chloe. I've always been so proud of you." My performance was impeccable. The room erupted in warm applause and good-natured laughter. "Director Sterling, your husband is so handsome and thoughtful. You two are a perfect power couple. We're all so jealous." Chloe's ego swelled to its bursting point. She kept her arm linked through mine as she navigated the room, accepting congratulations. In the glow of all that admiration, the way she looked at me was softened by a kind of charitable affection. I, her handsome accessory, had performed my duties perfectly tonight. Julian Vance was there, too. He stood across the room, holding a glass of whiskey, and exchanged a private, knowing glance with Chloe. It was a look of shared victory, of possession, of a secret triumph. I saw him. I even made a point of walking over to him, raising my glass. "Julian, I'm trusting you to look after our Chloe in her new role," I said with a sincere smile. Julian was taken aback for a second, then quickly recovered, clinking his glass against mine. "Of course, Ethan, but with Chloe's talent, we're all going to be learning from her." The two of us, the cuckolded husband and the adulterous lover, stood there in front of everyone and drank to her success. The irony was so thick you could choke on it. After the party, Chloe was tipsy and glowing, leaning against me as we walked to the car. "Ethan, you know what? Today was the happiest day of my life." I held her steady, my voice a soft murmur. "You'll have many more happy days to come." "Oh yes, so happy. Because I promise you, Chloe, this is the last happy night you will ever have." The very next day, I received the final and most lethal package of evidence from Kay. Even during her official review period, Chloe couldn't control herself. She and Julian had a tryst at a private villa out in the Hamptons. Kay's team had captured video of them arriving at the villa in the evening and not leaving until the next morning. The timestamp on the video was as clear and damning as a death sentence. Sleeping with a married colleague during her promotion's official review period. She had just handed me the knife and pointed to her own back. But there was more. Kay included a surprise bonus. Through some of his deeper contacts, he had unearthed a preliminary trail of evidence suggesting Julian was embezzling company funds and using a portion of that money on Chloe. It wasn't a complete case yet, not enough for a criminal indictment, but it was more than enough to trigger the most brutal internal investigation the firm had ever seen. All the pieces were in place. The blade was sharpened to a razor's edge. It was time to strike. That night, I locked myself in my office and opened my laptop. I felt no hesitation, no doubt. I was as calm as a surgeon before a life-or-death operation. I took the curated evidence I had gathered over the long months. The clearest photos, the most explicit chat logs, the undeniable receipts, and that fatal video of their tryst during the review period. And I wove it all into a single, devastating PowerPoint deck. I designed a simple, high-impact cover slide. The background was the high-resolution photo of Chloe and Julian kissing passionately outside the Hilton. Above it, in bold, clean font, was the title, "A Special Commendation on the Promotion of Director Chloe Sterling." Every slide was meticulously designed. A seamless narrative of images and text, logically laid out. From the beginning of their affair to the time and place of each secret meeting, to the financial entanglements and abuse of company resources. Each claim was backed by irrefutable proof, leaving absolutely no room for denial. This wasn't just a file of evidence. It was a public indictment, a detailed, systematic, and utterly ruinous judgment on her entire career and character. When it was done, I ordered a dozen blank USB drives online. I specifically chose a generic model, but from a supplier that could custom etch a logo onto the chip itself. On each one, I had them etch the Stellar Capital logo. Then, I copied the indictment onto each drive. The final step was to finalize the distribution list. I had long ago acquired the internal email directory for every single employee at Stellar Capital. On that long list, I highlighted a few key recipients in red: the CEO of Stellar Capital, every VP, the head of human resources, Chloe's direct supervisor, and all of her closest competitors. Every single employee in Julian Vance's department. And, of course, the most important recipient of all, Julian Vance's wife. I already had her home address. I also prepared several anonymous letters, ready to be sent with copies of the most damning evidence to Julian's most important clients, the ones who valued corporate integrity above all else. I looked at the neat rows of USB drives and sealed envelopes on my desk. They looked like a row of missiles ready for launch. Target acquired. Coordinates locked. Your ascent is over, Chloe. This is your one-way ticket to hell. My revenge was a play in 2 acts. Before the star of the show took her final bow, I needed to violently shove her leading man off the stage. Clipping her wings and letting her sit in terror while she awaited her judgment was far more satisfying than a single, clean blow. On the 3rd day of Chloe's review period, I took a half day off work. I drove not to a sleek office building, but to a nondescript FedEx drop-off center in Queens. I had 2 packages, both addressed in my left hand, the script deliberately clumsy to avoid any identifying traits. The first package was for Julian Vance's wife, a formidable woman whose family, I'd heard, had old money and a ruthless streak. Inside, I didn't include the most graphic photos. That would just make it about a simple affair. I wanted her to feel a deeper, more humiliating betrayal. I included copies of the bank statements showing Julian's spending on luxury gifts for Chloe. Each purchase was circled in red ink, with the date and item noted beside it. I also included a copy of the lease agreement for their love nest. The final, fatal touch was a single sheet of A4 paper with a few lines of typed text. Mrs. Vance, your husband isn't just cheating. He's using your shared assets and quite possibly stolen company money to fund his affair with this woman, Chloe Sterling. This is just the tip of the iceberg. He's a thief and a liar. Just a friendly warning. The second package was for Julian's most important long-term clients at Stellar Capital. These were corporations that prize stability and financial integrity above all else. Inside, I placed an anonymous whistleblower letter. In grave, concerned tones, it revealed that Julian Vance was embezzling funds, accepting kickbacks, and was engaged in a reckless personal life that presented a significant moral and financial risk to his projects. I attached a few long-lens photos of him and Chloe at expensive restaurants, along with some of the doctored financial records that looked utterly damning at first glance. With that done, I drove home as if nothing had happened, even stopping at Whole Foods to pick up groceries for a special dinner for Chloe that night. The storm hit at 10 a.m. the next morning. I wasn't there to see it, but Kay had a man on site who sent me a live text message play-by-play that was more gripping than any movie script. Julian's wife, it turned out, arrived at Stellar Capital with her 2 large, imposing brothers. She was dressed in a black Chanel suit and 10-centimeter heels, her face hidden behind oversized sunglasses. She looked like a mafia boss arriving to clean house. She didn't scream or cry. She strode directly into Julian's department. In front of all of his subordinates and colleagues, she ripped off her sunglasses and flung the contents of the package I'd sent directly into Julian's face as he was leading a morning meeting. The papers scattered like dead leaves. Julian, her voice was low but cut through the silent office like ice. You have gotten bold, haven't you? Using my money, our money, to keep a whore on the side? And now you're an embezzler, too? You pathetic little man. Julian was frozen, his face cycling through shades of red and white. He stammered, What are you talking about? This is slander. Slander? Mrs. Vance laughed a cold, sharp sound. From her Hermes bag, she pulled out another document. A divorce petition and an emergency motion to freeze their assets, already drafted by her lawyers. I've already filed with the court, and I've already sent an anonymous tip to your company's compliance department and to the SEC. Enjoy walking away with nothing, Julian. Enjoy prison. Without another glance at the broken man slumping in his chair, she turned and strode out, her brothers flanking her, leaving a crater of stunned silence in her wake. The office was dead quiet. Everyone stared, paralyzed, at the scattered papers on the floor and the ghost-white face of their boss. But that family drama was just the appetizer. Less than half an hour later, the tsunami hit. The calls from his major clients came in almost simultaneously directly to the CEO of Stellar Capital. Furious questions, stern warnings, and threats to pull tens of millions in investments rained down like hammer blows. Your department director is a corrupt, morally bankrupt embezzler. How can we possibly trust your firm with our business? You will launch a full investigation immediately, or we're pulling our funding and going to the press about your firm's catastrophic lack of oversight. The executive floor exploded. The heads of compliance and HR, smelling blood in the water, were in Julian's office in under 10 minutes. He was immediately suspended. His system access was revoked, his computer confiscated, and his files sealed. Then, in full view of the entire office, he was escorted by 2 security guards into a conference room to begin his interrogation. He looked like a man already dead. And my dear wife, Chloe. The news of Julian's spectacular implosion detonated in her department like a bomb. I can only imagine the look on her face. Shock, then terror, then a desperate, frantic effort to distance herself. She called me, her voice trembling. Ethan, something insane just happened at work, Julian. Julian Vance is under investigation. They're saying it's for embezzlement and other conduct issues. I feigned the appropriate level of shock. Really? That's so sudden. Are you okay? You're not involved in any of this, are you? My concern seemed to steady her. Me, of course not. We were just colleagues, she said, her voice high and strained. My God, I can't believe he was that kind of person. You just never know. It's terrifying. I agreed, my tone dripping with false sincerity. Chloe, you're in the final stretch. Don't let this mess distract you. I know you're innocent. Just focus on your promotion and don't worry about it. My expression of total trust was the final push she needed to feel safe. After she hung up, she probably breathed a sigh of relief, thanking her lucky stars for her stupid, loving, and completely oblivious husband. But she didn't know that the seeds of panic had already been planted. All over the office, the whispers had already started. Whispers about her and Julian. Their past flirtations, the lunches that went on a little too long. People had noticed. Now that Julian had fallen, all suspicion would naturally fall on her, the person who had benefited most from his work and had been his closest female colleague. After being taken into custody by the firm, Julian desperately tried to contact her, calling and texting, begging for help. But Chloe, my wonderfully selfish wife, did the coldest and most logical thing to protect her promotion. She blocked his number and all of his social media accounts. She thought that by cutting him off, she could erase their connection. She thought that with Julian gone, the crisis was over. She was naive enough to believe that if she could just survive 2 more days, just get that director title, everything would be fine. Poor, foolish woman. She had just personally severed her last possible lifeline, turning herself into an isolated island. An island that was about to be utterly consumed by the tidal wave I was about to unleash. I stood in my kitchen, calmly chopping vegetables for dinner, feeling a profound sense of peace. Patience, Chloe. Your judgment day hasn't arrived just yet. The main event is still to come. Chapter 6. The congratulatory gift. The final day of the review period was pure agony for Chloe. The office was a minefield of whispers. Every glance felt like an accusation, and she spent the entire day locked in her office, pretending to work, though the hand on her mouse trembled. She was terrified that Julian, in a desperate act of self-preservation, would drag her down with him. But, miraculously, the day passed without incident. Compliance didn't call her. HR didn't summon her. It was as if Julian Vance's career-ending implosion had nothing to do with her at all. At 4 p.m. sharp, the new HR announcement was posted on the company intranet. The text was stark and official. Following a group review, the board is pleased to announce the appointment of Ms. Chloe Sterling to the position of Director of Investments, effective tomorrow. Please join us in congratulating her. The moment she saw it, the tension that had been strangling Chloe for a week finally snapped. She let out a long, shuddering breath and collapsed into her expensive leather chair. The crisis was over. She had won. She had shed the liability of Julian Vance and secured the peak of her professional ambitions. A wave of pure, unadulterated ecstasy washed over her. She pictured herself as the firm's youngest female director, wielding real power, commanding respect. She pulled out her phone and sent me a text, concise and dripping with triumph. It's official. The announcement is out. I looked at the words on my screen and smiled. I replied with a smiling emoji and a warm message. That's amazing. You're incredible. Honey, we are definitely celebrating when you get home tonight. A celebration? Oh yes, there would be a celebration. How could such a grand coronation proceed without my own personal gift? At 5 p.m., exactly 1 hour after the HR announcement, at that golden hour when everyone was just starting to pack up for the day, I hit send. A single anonymous email, a precision-guided ghost, was delivered simultaneously to the inbox of every single employee at Stellar Capital. From a CEO on the top floor to the cleaning crew in the basement, no one was missed. The subject line was in bold red text, radiating mockery. A special commendation on the promotion of Director Chloe Sterling. The attachment was a single zip file. The other side of Director Sterling. Zip. I had timed it perfectly. The entire company was still buzzing from the news of her promotion. Curiosity and gossip were at their absolute peak. An email with a subject line, that explosive was a lit match dropped onto a field of dry grass. At first, there were just a few scattered mouse clicks. Then, a few seconds of dead silence. It was followed by the first audible gasp. And then, as if a chain reaction of bombs had been detonated, a massive, unrestrained wave of shock and commotion erupted from every corner of the office. Oh my God, is that Chloe Sterling? Holy shit, are you seeing this? Whispers turned into open-mouthed, unabashed discussion. Scorn, disgust, excitement, morbid glee. 1,000 different expressions played out on the faces of her colleagues, and 1,000 pairs of eyes, like a volley of poison-tipped arrows, shot toward the glass walls of the new director's office. Chloe received the email, too. She probably assumed it was another note of congratulations. With a victor's smile, she casually moved her mouse and opened the attachment. The moment my carefully designed PowerPoint cover slide appeared on her screen, the high-resolution photo of her and Julian locked in a passionate kiss outside the Hilton, her world fell apart. I can picture it perfectly, the blood draining from her face, leaving it the color of ash. Her smile freezing, then shattering, replaced by a mask of pure, incomprehending horror. Her body would have started to tremble, the hand that held the mouse falling limp, thudding against the desk. She would have looked up, her eyes meeting the hundreds of cruel, complex, and judgmental stares from outside her office. In that one instant, her entire universe would have spun off its axis. Her career pinnacle, her glamorous reputation, her carefully constructed image as a corporate icon. All of it, in the space of a few seconds, was annihilated by my gift, blown into dust so fine that not a single recognizable piece remained. The PowerPoint deck was a scalpel, peeling back her skin layer by layer, exposing the rotten filth beneath. The high-resolution photos and video stills were a public execution. Chloe and Julian in his car, at restaurants, in the lobby of their love nest, at the private villa, every intimate moment, frozen in time as an eternal monument to her disgrace. I had thoughtfully blurred the most explicit parts, but their faces were perfectly clear, the implications of their actions more powerful than any nudity. The chat logs were laid bare for all to see. Every lustful emoji she sent, every condescending word she wrote about me. The detailed list of luxury gifts, displayed side by side with photos of her wearing those very items at company events, created a masterpiece of bitter irony. And the final, killing blow, the video evidence of their tryst during her official promotion review period, the timestamp burning like a brand, nailing her to the cross of her own moral depravity. This wasn't just about cheating anymore. This was a public spectacle of debauchery. It was a brazen betrayal that spat in the face of the entire company's code of conduct. The door to the CEO's office flew open. His face was a thundercloud. Behind him stood the grim-faced head of HR and several other executives. "Get Chloe Sterling in my office. Now!" The CEO's roar echoed across the entire floor. Chloe, like a puppet with its strings cut, was practically carried into the office that represented the firm's ultimate authority. On a massive projector screen inside, my PowerPoint deck was playing on a loop. The sordid images of her affair were magnified to fill an entire wall, every damning detail on grotesque display. She had no defense. Faced with a mountain of irrefutable proof, any denial would have been laughable. She completely broke down, collapsing to the floor in a sobbing, incoherent heap. 15 minutes later, a new company-wide email went out. Effective immediately, the appointment of Ms. Chloe Sterling to the position of Director of Investments is rescinded. Ms. Sterling is hereby suspended, pending a full investigation into gross misconduct and potential abuse of company resources. She is barred from company premises until further notice. The efficiency was breathtaking. From the heavens to the deepest pit of hell, it had taken Chloe Sterling exactly 1 hour. Her social execution was complete, carried out in the most brutal, public, and irreversible way imaginable. The news spread like wildfire, first through the company, then to recruiter circles and Wall Street gossip forums. Slut slept her way to the top. Homewrecker, toxic. The vilest labels were permanently welded to her name. She was finished. In this industry, she was utterly and completely finished. And I, the architect of her downfall, was sitting calmly on my sofa at home, pouring myself a glass of fine single malt scotch I had been saving. The ice clinked in the glass, a crisp, clean sound. I watched the city lights flicker to life as dusk settled, and I drained the glass in one long, satisfying swallow. "So, Chloe, did you enjoy the party I threw for you?" Chapter 7. The Reckoning. I don't remember exactly what time Chloe got home. It was late. I was on the balcony, watching the river of headlights flowing below, savoring the profound quiet of a mission accomplished. The sound of the front door opening was soft, hesitant, almost ghostly. I didn't turn around. She drifted into the living room like a phantom, her movements heavy and slow. The apartment was dark, save for the ambient glow of the city filtering through the windows, casting a fractured, shifting light on her broken form. She, who had always been so meticulously put together, was a wreck. Her hair was a mess. Her makeup was smeared in dark tracks down her face, and her expensive dress was deeply wrinkled. She looked like a flower that had been ripped from its stem and trampled into the mud. She radiated an aura of pure, undiluted despair. The silence in the room was absolute, broken only by the sound of our breathing. I knew she was staring at my back in the darkness, the back of the man she thought she had so cleverly managed, so thoroughly underestimated. Finally, what was left of her shattered mind seemed to find a single, burning question. Her voice was a raw, broken rasp, like sandpaper on glass. "Was it you?" I turned slowly to face her. In the gloom, I couldn't see her expression clearly, but I could feel her bloodshot eyes locked on me. "The email. Did you send it?" she asked again, her voice trembling on the edge of hysteria. She seemed to be hoping, begging, for me to deny it, to offer her one last, flimsy branch to cling to. I didn't answer her. Instead, I walked to the light switch by the door and flipped it on. The brilliant, unforgiving light flooded the room, illuminating the ghastly white of her face. She flinched, shielding her eyes as if the light was a physical blow. And I stood there in the brightness, looking down at her, the cowering loser huddled in the shadows. My face was a blank slate. Gone was the gentle, doting mask I had worn for a year. In its place was a coldness that went bone deep. I looked at her as one might look at a piece of filth to be disposed of. "Who else?" I said, my voice quiet, devoid of emotion. "Did you really think I didn't know?" Every word was a shard of ice, plunging directly into what was left of her heart. She staggered back as if I'd struck her, her body hitting the wall with a dull thud. When did you?" she stammered, her eyes wide with a dawning, monstrous terror. When did I know?" I finished for her, the corner of my mouth twisting into a smile devoid of all warmth. I've known since our anniversary last year. The night it rained. The night I saw you kissing Julian Vance outside the Hilton. A choked, strangled sound escaped her lips. The last trace of color drained from her face. Fear, a vast, suffocating tide of it, finally drowned her. She finally understood. She wasn't dealing with a simple, pliable fool she could deceive at will. She was facing the Avenger who had been watching her from the shadows for an entire year. I gave her no time to recover. I relished this, peeling back the truth layer by painful layer, watching my prey squirm. I walked toward her, my voice low and cruel, as I recounted the year-long execution. The new passcode on your phone, the strange perfume on your clothes, the endless late nights at the office. You thought you were being clever, Chloe. Your performance was pathetic. I leaned in closer. Why didn't I just confront you? Because that would have been too easy, too merciful. I didn't want a divorce. I wanted you to lose everything you cared about more than me. I was inches from her face now. The breakfasts I made you, the designer bags I bought, my unwavering support and devotion. You enjoyed that, didn't you? It must have felt so good, thinking you were playing your husband for a fool. I lowered my voice to a whisper, a venomous secret just for her. Your arrogance, your sense of control, your smug self-satisfaction. I nurtured all of it. I fed it to you day after day. It was the poison I had you drink. How does it taste now? She was shaking uncontrollably, her teeth chattering, staring at me as if I were a demon who had clawed its way out of hell. The photos, the videos. Oh, those. I straightened up, my voice returning to its flat, indifferent tone. I hired the best. Cost me a fortune. Every time you and Julian were in his car, at a restaurant, or in your precious little love nest, you had a professional photographer documenting your love story. What did you think of the PowerPoint deck? I put a lot of thought into the design. I wanted to ensure maximum impact. Julian, that was you too. Of course, I said, as if stating the obvious. First, you clip the wings. You isolate the target. Then you push her off the cliff. The fall is much more spectacular that way, don't you think? You're a monster. You're insane, she finally shrieked, swinging a wild, clumsy punch at me. I caught her wrist easily, my grip like steel. A monster. I laughed, a cold, dead sound, and shoved her hand away. What were you when you were sleeping with another man, then coming home to my bed and accepting my care? What were you when you took my love and my trust and used it to humiliate me behind my back? Did it ever occur to you, not even for a second, that this day would come? Every word was a hammer blow, pulverizing the last remnants of her pride. She slid down the wall and crumpled to the floor, a boneless heap of misery, and began to sob. She finally understood. She hadn't just lost her career, her reputation, and her future. She had lost the very foundation of her being, her pride, her confidence, her belief in her own cleverness. All this time, she was the one being played, the tragic, clueless clown in a drama she didn't even know she was starring in. I looked down at her, convulsing on the floor, and felt nothing, not an ounce of pity. I took out my phone and dialed my lawyer. Wallace, it's time, I said, my voice crisp. Serve her with the papers first thing in the morning. That's right. The terms are non-negotiable. She walks away with nothing. I ended the call and tossed a credit card onto the floor in front of her. There's $5,000 on that. Consider it severance. Get your things and be out of this apartment by sunrise. I never want to see your face again. Without another glance, I turned, walked back to the balcony, and slid the glass door shut, sealing off the sound of her weeping, locking her and her shattered life out of my world for good. Just before the door clicked shut, I added one final piece of information, my voice light and casual. Oh, and I forgot to mention, they found enough evidence of embezzlement to formally arrest Julian. He's going to be spending a very, very long time in prison. The door closed. Behind me, her sobs turned into a raw, gut-wrenching wail of utter despair. It was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. Chapter 8. Ashes and Embers. I have no idea when Chloe finally slunk out of my life. When I woke up the next morning, she was gone. The living room was still a wreck, a testament to her breakdown, the air thick with the stench of her despair. Most of her things were gone. Her vanity was cleared except for a few empty bottles. Her side of the closet was a cavern of empty hangars. I imagined she couldn't stand to be in that apartment, the scene of her ruin, for a second longer. The days that followed were quiet and methodical. The aftershocks of Chloe's implosion reached me in sporadic bursts from the outside world. She had become an infamous cautionary tale, a joke told in the boardrooms and bars of the entire financial industry. Stellar Capital's internal investigation concluded swiftly. They confirmed her gross ethical violations and the abuse of her position to aid Julian's projects. While no direct bribery was found, it was more than enough grounds for her termination. She was fired in the most humiliating way possible. Her resume was now toxic waste. No reputable firm would touch her. A few smaller, ghoulish companies reached out, but only out of morbid curiosity to see the fallen celebrity up close. Her so-called best friends, the ones who had toasted her success, all vanished overnight, severing ties as if she were contagious. Her calls went to voicemail or were met with cold, clipped excuses. I heard she moved into a cheap, run-down apartment in a distant borough, that she spent her days crying, a ghost of the vibrant, ambitious woman she once was. Someone snapped a picture of her on the street once. She looked gaunt, her eyes hollow, a walking corpse. Online, the threads and forums discussing her downfall were still active, a permanent digital monument to her shame. Every comment was another handful of salt rubbed into her wounds. Her life was now a pile of ash. Meanwhile, I was calmly and efficiently severing our final ties. The divorce was quick. My legal team was ruthlessly efficient, having ring-fenced my assets long ago. And Chloe, disgraced and broken, had neither the funds nor the will to fight. All she wanted was to shed the name Sterling Grant, a label that now brought her nothing but shame. Her hand shook violently as she signed the papers. We didn't exchange a single word. The day the divorce was finalized, the weather was perfect. I didn't tell anyone. There was no celebration. For me, it was simply taking out the trash. I changed my phone number and blocked anyone who had a remote connection to her. Then, I put the apartment on the market. I listed it at a low price for a quick sale. I couldn't stand to live in a space so contaminated by her memory. Before the movers came, I walked through the empty rooms one last time. A few things she had left behind were scattered about. Old photos of us, a few small gifts she'd given me over the years, trinkets I'd bought for her home. Expressionless, I gathered every last remnant of our shared past and packed it all into a large cardboard box. I carried the box to my car and drove to an industrial lot on the edge of the city. In the shadow of a decaying warehouse, I placed the contents of the box into a steel drum and doused them with lighter fluid. The match flared, and the fire roared to life, greedily consuming the artifacts of a false life. I watched the smiling faces in the photographs curl, blacken, and turn to ash. I felt nothing. When the fire died down, only one thing remained. The platinum wedding band I had worn for 7 years. I had taken it off the moment the divorce decree was in my hand. I didn't burn it. It didn't deserve a fate that passionate. I got back in my car and drove, with no destination in mind, eventually finding myself on the George Washington Bridge. It was dusk. The setting sun bled across the Hudson, turning the water into a river of molten gold. The wind whipped across the bridge, cool and clean. I walked to the middle of the pedestrian path and stood at the railing. I took the ring from my pocket. The cold metal caught the last rays of sunlight. I stared at it for a long moment, as if looking at a fossil from a dead and buried era. Then, with all my strength, I threw it as far as I could into the air. It traced a tiny, silver arc against the darkening sky, a dying star, before it hit the water with a faint plink. It was swallowed instantly by the powerful current, vanishing without so much as a ripple. It would lie at the bottom of that cold, dark river forever, buried in silt and mud. A fitting grave. I turned my back on the river and walked away without a second glance. I got in my car and merged smoothly into the evening traffic, just another commuter heading home. The windows were up, sealing me off from the wind and the ghosts of the past. The car moved forward, one of countless headlights flowing toward a future where Chloe Sterling no longer existed. A future that was, finally, my own. The sunset painted the city in brilliant, warm colors. My car disappeared into the light. A new life was beginning.